And then the same then for you, Arne.
Sure. So I'm Lars. I am a technical account manager for about 7 months now here at AWS. And I am working remotely from home office and taking care of customers in the region of Hamburg.
Perfect. And you?
Hi, I'm Arne. I'm joined about 4 months ago as a temp, based in Frankfurt, so also working remotely.
Cool. So quite new. So I've recruited both these guys, so they're new enough to the team. But how many are on the team in Germany at the moment?
So now currently we have 10 in the team.
Okay, perfect. And we're looking to grow. That's why I'm here from recruitment. Okay, so I just wanted to kick off with the first question. So if you could just give me an overview of what you've learned over the last few months since you started, and what your role involves in terms of the technical side and the customer side of the role.
Sure. So learning here at Amazon, at least, you need to do it quick. So we learned a lot. My knowledge of AWS when I started was quite limited. Of course, I started to learn quickly. There's a great onboarding process that helped with that as well. So learned a lot in the first couple of weeks and still every day. So for me, I don't know if that's different for you, Arne, but it was a very big challenge to stay up to date with all of the new stuff that comes out and all of the things that we have to learn.
Yeah, it is for me. It still is. So I started also with internal trainings, skilling up on technology, and also our processes. That now this shifts as I'm working for my first 2 customers. So I also need to understand what they are doing. So knowing their technology. So now I'm looking at things like a container, Kubernetes, and all these fancy tech stuff, which I don't have a history on. So it's a challenge.
Definitely.
But it's fun.
A learning curve.
Yeah.
And can you talk me through from when you started, what kind of training and onboarding you received when you started here?
So we started with a 3-week training. 1 week was focused on technical account management, so focused on using the tools that you will be using every day at a time. They will teach you how to use them, how to be successful in doing what the TAM does every day. So we require to do some quarterly reviews. We need to know what the customer is doing, understand what they're doing on our platform. So we have lots of internal tools for that you have to learn, which is overwhelming because you get many of them. But once you get into the job, they become very obvious. Then after that, you have 2 weeks of it's the same training that our CSEs get, our customer support engineers, where you learn the support tools. So troubleshooting our services, how that we do that, how can you get the information you need, and also how the internal escalation process works, so that if a customer comes to you with a problem that has to be solved quickly, you know who to reach out to, and build a network of engineers which you will need to get things done.
And those people are also new people who are starting doing the same training as you.
Yes, so definitely. So we are mixed in together in those 2 weeks with TAMs, CSEs, CSAs, so associates, graduate programs. It's from different levels that are sitting in the same room, which gives a really good mix because you learn from all of these people what they have done in the past and how they are taking this large amount of data coming at you in the first 3 weeks. Yeah.
And was there anyone who you thought, okay, they seem really good, they seem to already know a lot, maybe I should buddy up with them?
Definitely. So there were definitely some colleagues, technical account managers that I talked to, which felt like they had a lot more experience with AWS services. For me, I didn't work with AWS before. So it was it was a little bit intimidating, but it actually gave me also the motivation to step up and go one step further and learn everything else.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool. And Lars, you mentioned that you now have 2 customers. Sorry, Arne, you now have 2 customers that you're starting to kind of meet up with and that. So, how long does it take before you get your first customers? And how is it assigned to you? Like, how do they know which customers suit you?
Okay. Well, usually I would say it takes 3 to 6 months before you get first customers assigned. So I'm on the early side here. Mm-hmm. But they are a good match. So they are smaller customers.
Is that based on your background that you were given smaller customers? Or?
This decision was based on the region for one side. So it's around Frankfurt region, so within 1-2 hours to drive. So that makes it easier to get in contact and visit them. And I worked with similar industries and customers before. So not with exactly their technology, though one of them is like crazy about Kubernetes. The other one is really doing software.
Crazy about what?
Kubernetes container servers.
Ah, okay.
The other one is doing more lift and shift classical IT, but it's a good fit.
Okay, so that's good because the last one I did, one of the TAMs described how they try and match the right customers to the TAM and vice versa. So if you don't want to travel much, you have a lot of people located near you that you can commute to easily. And also then if you, let's say, are really interested and your background's in startups, then you'd be aligned with startups, or if you're used to big multinationals, they're the kind of enterprise customers you're aligned to. So that's good to know. And what about you, Lars? Are you aligned to ones that are similar to what you did before?
So I would say one of the luckiest TAMs in the team. All of my 3 customers are in the city that I live in. So my commute takes between 15 and 20 minutes to get to my customers.
Right.
For looking at the alignment, at least how I feel it is, if it's an open discussion, we definitely get accounts assigned, but there is an open discussion going on. If you are very interested in Kubernetes and you would like to work with a specific customer, talk to your manager and he will be more than happy to facilitate.
Okay.
For me, I was lucky that I got accounts that I love working with, as they're using technologies that I'm very interested in. One of them is doing big data on a very big scale, doing machine learning, doing artificial intelligence. Another one is a startup in retail, doing the startup thing where there are no rules. There is just, we need to build something, it has to be fast and it has to work. So their cycles are going from test to production in less than a week sometimes, where they start on Monday, on Friday it's in production. So those kinds of fast-paced companies, that really keeps me very interested.
Yeah, and on your toes.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a typical journey you bring the customers on from that, what you just said? I don't think so. They're probably looking at different things altogether.
Yeah, so for me at least, my customers are very different, all of them, but none of them actually have the same thing, which makes it very interesting for me as well. There is no customer using the same services. Although, of course, the basic services like EC2 and stuff they're using, but one of them is really focused on machine learning, the other one is more on smaller services and building their own platform. They actually built their own kind of thing that they sell again on AWS, so they're all different things.
Okay. And just in terms of, who you partner with to come out and meet those customers, like if you said you'd one with big data, but, if you're new enough, is someone coming out with you to those customer meetings, or are you thrown in the deep end?
Yeah, so you will start in a shadowing role, and then we have a setup of primary and secondary technical account manager. So you will first shadow, and then you will be introduced in a secondary role before you take a primary role. There is a team, so it's not just us, there's a TAM.
Yeah.
So there is the account manager from sales side. We have a solution architect for technical questions. There is concierge services, who also covers part of support side, account related questions, financial questions, and there is the support engineers. So there are a lot of people behind us. Sometimes we go all together, like for introduction, first meeting. Sometimes it's just phone calls once a week, like cadence calls. And we can't know everything, so it's like such a broad knowledge that you have to reach out and get more information, or just get help and get a solution architect that is specialized on a topic.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because so it's probably more now, but about a year ago when I started, they said there was between 70 and 75 different products and services being offered by AWS, and no one TAM can know all of them in detail, so you need to know what they are, what they do, but really you become more maybe of an expert in one particular area. Is that right?
It's actually your customers who will drive this, because you will learn the things that your customer uses most. Just you are engaged, they will ask questions, you will have to troubleshoot things, so
you get better at that.
It's a journey.
Yeah. And in terms of being like a subject matter expert, like is there each person on the team, do they all have a different strength, or is there anything that you all are the exact same about? Or?
That's a difficult one. Like, everyone has their own personal preference, of course. I am somebody who really interests himself in machine learning, artificial intelligence, so things like SageMaker. That from the moment it came out, I started playing with it. I had to know what it did and how it worked. But that was even before I had a customer who was using it. So you always have your personal, and that's the thing that I love here as well. You have that freedom. If you want to learn something, nobody's going to stop you. There's so many resources internally, going from internal self-paced trainings until videos or internal trainings, even classes that we can follow internally. So to teach yourself these things, and then you can help your team if they get a customer that gets assigned. But also because you do this, of course, your manager will know.
Yeah.
If a customer comes in that has this need for artificial intelligence or machine learning, you will also be probably the first one they will ask, would you like to have this customer? So by having a personal preference, you can build your own skill set.
Okay.
Yeah. And everybody has a different background, history, so we complement each other. But there is no like formal process for this. It's not like
you need. Yeah, this is what you're learning every month.
This is what you have to learn.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah. And the access to kind of that ad hoc training and learning you can do, obviously it's specific to each of you because you might want to learn loads about machine learning and big data and someone else might not. So how do you even know about those? Or, like, how do you get involved or get more training in a certain area? Is it your manager you talk to, or
well, it's
brown bag sessions? Or?
You will take the initiatives yourself.
Yeah.
Of course, you can ask your manager, but there is plenty of information available online in online systems like KNet, for example. So
yeah,
there's training systems online. There's also presence trainings. So like I attended technical trainings in London.
Yeah. So
and I was very surprised. I asked my manager, am I allowed to go to this training? I'm interested. And his response was, you don't need to ask me. If you think this benefits your customer, just go ahead.
Yeah.
Which I was very surprised. I wasn't used or didn't expect this.
Yeah.
So the challenge is to find the time. You need to balance it with the customer requirements.
Yeah. And I've heard it's a challenge when you start with the amount of data that there is, and you don't need to know everything, but at the beginning you're trying to absorb everything.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of prioritize what you were going to pick and choose to know more about? Was it
that was for me very difficult to find out until I got my customers assigned. In the beginning, you have, like you said, there's so much to learn. So I just started on personal preference. And once I got customers assigned, that priority completely shifted because everything the customer was using, I was then trying to skill up as fast as possible. The other thing that definitely helped me was getting a mentor here at Amazon. So we have a very a very good mentor program where you take another technical account manager or somebody outside of your department who will kind of guide you into how things work here at Amazon, and will let you know, okay, these are the resources you can get. This is how you actually get all of the information that you would like to know or whatever. There are some, for example, things that I didn't know is that we have internally technical communities about different services where actually people from different departments come together, even technical account managers, support, but even developers that are just interested in the service. And we have mail lists that we communicate, we ask questions, we have internal forums that we ask questions. So if you want to learn something, there's so many ways to do it.
And how do you get a mentor? Is it something you do, or?
So there is an internal tool that can help you with it. I looked for somebody myself because I'm picky.
But how did you find out about them?
So when I started to look for these services, I quickly joined these or found these technical communities, and actually found a person in the technical community that we had lots in common. So I just picked up that person and said, okay, would you like to teach me a little bit more about how everything works here?
Okay. Did you find a mentor as well?
Oh, I don't have yet.
Self-taught? Genius.
But to be honest, like the first 2 months, it was basically full-time training.
Yeah.
Technical training and the trainings you already mentioned.
Yes.
And then afterwards, I was shadowing colleagues, so...
they were like mini mentors. Okay, so a lot of people throughout the recruitment process ask me what's the difference between a solutions architect and a TAM, and even just the structure of all the different roles and job titles and where they sit in the org. So I know the technical account manager role sits under premium support, and the solutions architect sits under the sales org. But could you maybe talk me through when someone maybe like a solutions architect might come out with you to meet a customer, or how are they even, what's the difference between an SA and a TAM?
It's a difficult question. as a TAM, we are in a different role. So we support the customer ongoingly. So we keep informed. We know what he is doing. We know if he has any trouble and support him here. While the solution architect is more about improving things. So it's project based. It's not ongoing. So he's there for a certain project, certain goals.
Yeah.
So he will review architecture or review operations, make suggestions, or help developing something.
Okay, and you're there throughout their journey for as long as that lasts, probably forever.
But nevertheless, also the solution architects, they are specific to a customer. They don't change.
Yeah. Okay.
So like
most of the time,
Yeah.
So
it's a stable team from a customer point of view.
Okay.
Yeah. So solutions architect, in my opinion, also they have very broad knowledge of our stack, and then we have also specialized solutions architects, which are more narrow. They have a deep knowledge of specific services, and we would pull those in if, for example, a customer is concerned about edge security and they would like to have a better DDoS protection. We would have a specialized, let's say, who would pull in and we could ask them questions, and they would be very, very limited scope. They would literally only come in for a very short time until we have some success criteria met that they have a better platform. They do something which we call a well-architected review, where there's a kind of like a questionnaire that the solution architect will go over, and then we can give them better best practices guidance on their platform. But SAs are really workload specific. They really go deep on a specific workload. Yeah, and we go over the whole thing. So we help the customer on every service they have, anything they're running. Really, we should be an expert. We try to be an extension of their team as much as possible.
Did you spend time actually on site with the customer a lot, or does it depend?
I do. So it's a personal preference, and it's something what the customer you feel what the customer wants and appreciates. So for my 3 customers, I have one customer I'm there every other week. Another customer I'm there whenever I have time. And the third customer, they only require me to be there once in the quarter to do the quarterly reviews. So it really depends what they want. I have the benefit, of course, that they're in the same city, so it doesn't really matter for me.
And what about you? Do you meet them regularly at the beginning? Do you need to build that rapport?
Well, there is in the beginning, there's more meetings. But on the other side, customers sometimes can be very busy. So building up this initial relationship is tough. So I would say I'm with the customers like once a month, twice a month maybe.
Okay. And are there calls though all the time? Or?
There is for sure like a weekly or bi-weekly call I do with my customers, like a cadence call for half an hour to stay up to date. It's in both directions. So we share information. They give us a picture of what's going on. So you can, and then you identify initiatives like doing a cost optimization and then a follow-up on this what was it called?
In German.
Okay, I will. So then you identify opportunities. But for me, most of it is via email or phone.
Yeah.
They don't expect or they don't want me on site.
So you're like a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know there's a lot of confidential stuff in Amazon and AWS, but in terms of the most exciting projects you're working on or technology, I know you love big data and machine learning. I don't know what you can talk about or not, but if there's something you can talk about, what is your most exciting project, or you're new enough, both of you, so, how involved can you be in project work yet?
So for me, I think my most exciting thing was one of my customers actually decided to go all in AWS, so they moved everything what they had on-premise to AWS. Working together with them to do that in a very short time frame, and even that time frame had to be pushed at some point because there's just not enough time. It was really challenging to get everything to work because, of course, they come from on-premise. They're now at the same time trying to use some native AWS services. Some things they decided just to lift and shift, so just to move over. So working together with them and then going through some escalations to get that working properly, that was very interesting. It was really cool to also be involved and see how it works on the other side, how everything has to be moved over. To have a team of 4 people at that point in time. Now they have 6, but then they had 4 people that were doing all of that, and it was a lot of work, a lot of late hours for them, definitely. And
you mentioned now you're on the other side, so is it good that you've been in their shoes kind of before,
definitely.
maybe?
So for me, I used to be data center administrator, so I had the knowledge I have knowledge of hardware, software, maintenance, all of those things. it definitely helped me. I wouldn't say it was required, but it made the conversation a lot simpler because when a customer was talking about a specific thing, I could immediately jump in and understand what they were talking about. I'm not sure if this would have affected the success of this project, but it definitely helped building trust with the customer.
Yeah, exactly. And what about you?
For me, I would say customer where I'm like as a secondary term. They are a very large company, so they built a cloud competency team with over 100 people now.
Nice.
And the thing is they are changing like the mindset of everybody from classical IT to cloud computing, to more agile ways, so to do things another way, to do things quicker, to do more, and so on. And seeing this transformation ongoingly is amazing, and seeing how they approach it. I come from a consultant background in the past, and when I delivered projects, the real challenge often was not on a technical side; it was on
the kind of mindset
side. So you could have the perfect solution, but if you do not have the buy-in of all your stakeholders, it will not work. And going through all this with the customers is very interesting.
And is it a slow process if it's such a big company?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Sounds like you do very different roles.
We do.
With the same job title. Okay, cool. And in terms of the role, a lot of people ask me about work-life balance and how much travel is involved in the role, and we touched upon it in terms of where they're aligning you with customers that are either near where you're living or, not too far a commute. But can you manage it yourself, or what percentage do you spend traveling? Do you travel outside of Germany, or?
So far, I would say I traveled about half of my time.
50%?
Which may be quite a lot because of trainings, because I just joined.
Trainings are in Ireland, by the way.
I manage it myself, so I manage all the appointments and so on. I work a lot from home, so it's a lot of flexibility. For me, this is perfectly fine. I was traveling a lot more over the last years. But I'm freely decide I can come to the Munich office, I can go to Frankfurt office, or work from home, so it's really up to me.
What about you?
Well,
15-minute commute.
15-minute commute, of course, it makes it also a personal preference. So my customer doesn't require me to be there constantly. I have one of the bigger customers that I call often. I would say required travel in a month, maybe 4 days, 5 days, that I would be required. So it's a lower percentage, but it really depends on your customer and your personal preference. If I have 1 week and I say I need to get some work done, I would like to work from home, then so be it. I mean, that's definitely possible to do. Work-life balance for me is very good, of course, because I work from home. I mean, if there is something that I have to quickly step out, as long as I do what is expected from me, I have my meetings with my customers and I deliver what they request. And there's nobody who's going to tell me, like, oh, you stepped out at 3 p.m. What are you doing? So there's a really good work balance for me, and it's the same for the people here in the office. If you want to work from home, they work from home for a day. If they have to step out for something, so be it.
Yeah.
It's really good. For me, it's a really good balance.
I think the challenge is there's so much cool things to learn. And you have on yourself to decide, well, when do I spend more time on training or do I spend time with my family? So I do have 2 small kids. So
you'd rather spend it learning.
No, I get it.
That's good. It sounds quite flexible and different for everyone as well. I've heard a little bit about Awesome Days, and I know very little about it, but I think they're going across Europe. But do you guys know anything about the Awesome Days?
Honestly, I don't know much about them.
Okay, the wrong question to ask. Okay, grand. No, it's just in the last webinar, the first time I heard about them, and Isabel was just saying that if you want to travel more, you can, and you can kind of coordinate to go to some of these different events around Europe that will suit you. And I know we have reInvent, which some people get to go to as well. So what's reInvent?
So reInvent is our yearly conference in the last couple of years in Las Vegas, and I guess it will stay like that. Where I think the biggest thing is that we announce new services. So, whenever Andy Jassy comes on stage, we are ready to start all over again. Day one from the day after reInvent. So it's our biggest conference where our customers, our partners are whoever really works or touches AWS can come to, and they will have workshops. There are many sessions that they can follow to learn about new things, about the new services that have been announced, but even there are just tracks that they can follow, technical tracks about different services. There's also a session there, or let's say a room there where people can get certified, because we have certifications that people can follow, so they can do that there as well. So it's like a very large event that kind of showcases the AWS services.
Cool. Okay, and so after that event, you have to learn about all these new products and services.
Yeah, definitely. That's what keeps us busy.
Yeah. You can imagine that the customers will ask you the next day, when is it available?
Of course, exactly. The first question: when is it available? When, where, and how can I use it?
And you're like, I'll get back to you when I know more.
Exactly. The first thing we have to say is we will let you know in a couple of days when I learned.
Okay, cool. So that's all my questions from my side. Because I am from the recruitment team, I think some of you know what the recruitment process is, but just to kind of your own experiences from the recruitment process, was there anything you loved or hated about it? And what would you tell someone now if they were starting the interview process at Amazon?
Listen to your recruiter.
If you get a chance to talk to me, that is.
True.
But what do you think are kind of the toughest things, and if you knew in hindsight what the day would be like interviewing?
To be honest, you were my recruiter, so I'm a little bit biased here, but I think the preparation was really good. I knew what was going to happen in my on-site interview, so I knew the process. I knew how to come prepared. It was still a very difficult thing, though. The interview itself was something that was, for me, very challenging. The questions that are being asked here is not something you normally get, right? The way of questioning here in Amazon is, in my opinion, really good. And it had to bring, the best out of me to show what I did and really rethink what have I done in the past to actually achieve some good things. Before I was a technical account manager as well, so it was a little bit simpler because the role was very similar. But yeah, it was one of the most difficult interviews that I had, which also made it the most, I think, rewarding interview, because you notice that it's not in some jobs you get the interview very short, you get the job, and you immediately notice this is not really a good fit. Here at Amazon, after the interview, I was sure that this is where I wanted to be, where I wanted to start, because of the lots of attention that you get. I mean, you're interviewing 5-6 hours in a loop. You have a lot of time to ask questions, so you can ask them after each interview whatever you want to ask. So after that day, I was sure if I get the job, I will stay here for a while.
I think a lot of people who are quite technical and are coming on site for interview expect that if they're interviewing for a technical job, all the interviews will be technical. Yeah. And that's why I don't get a chance to talk to everyone, but I try and ring each person before they come for an on-site interview, just to give them a heads up that when they come in, they will be interviewing with TAMs and maybe solutions architects or someone from another part of the business. And only 2 out of 5 of the interviews are actually technical. The 2 of the people who interview you will ask you some technical questions, and then all the rest of the questions are based on Amazon's leadership principles, which are basically everything from earning trust, which applies to a technical account manager when you're dealing with customers and your own team, but delivering results, all those kind of things. So, unless you've actually had a look and read them, and when I was sent them myself, when I was interviewing, I thought, oh yeah, whatever. These are the company has this nice idea of all these traits that you should be, trustworthy and deliver results and things. So I didn't think they'd actually just ask you all these questions around it. So I think the first phone interview is technical, so that's assessing if you meet the tech bar for this role. And then after that, the second phone interview is with the hiring manager, who will be your manager in the role if you're successful. And they ask you around your fit for Amazon and the role, which is actually the leadership principles. Yeah. And then when you come on site, you have the 2 technical interviews and 3 non-technical, and hopefully you get a lunch break if you're lucky. But some people have done 5 hours with nothing to eat, which is shocking. So hopefully everyone gets a lunch break.
I got food. I got food.
And then people are kind of like in different countries, they don't like being brought for lunch by someone who they think is interviewing them. But it's not an interview. It's like more for the candidate to find out about the role and ask lots of questions, and maybe for once not have to talk and get a chance to eat, what someone else is talking. But in some countries it doesn't work. So in some countries you have to just let them go for lunch for an hour and take a few deep breaths and relax rather than feel that they're being watched while they're eating their lunch. But how did you find it? Was there anything that you were really surprised about, or did you?
No, maybe just some feedback some months later is like, it's not only the interview about the leadership principles, it's like really we are living by it.
Yeah.
Which not every company does.
Mm.
So it's really kind of the DNA.
Yeah.
So it's not just a methodology for the interviews, it's really
So there for a reason.
yeah. The way Amazon works.
Yeah, that's true. And is there any kind of leadership principle that you think that's why I'm a good fit here?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a customer obsession because that's what we do. We are like part of the customer team.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you
really need
that.
to have it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what about you? Is there one that you think is
For me,
a good fit?
yeah, for me, definitely bias for action. I do things. It's something that can be reversed. Like if we can do an action, customer has an issue, and we try to resolve it. If we can roll it back in a, let's say, short time frame, so that there will be no downtime, just do it. Why not just test it, right?
And if it saves them time, money, why don't you do it for all your customers?
It helps with lots of it depends on the customer as well. I have a startup and I have a very fast-paced large customer that can do that. I have another customer which is in the enterprise. There we cannot do that.
Yeah.
They have a very long process of staging, testing, and then 5 or 6 people have to approve it.
Yeah.
So it takes 2 or 3 weeks before we can even think about planning this in change requests. But my other two customers, it's like, okay, would this work? I don't know, let's test it. And it's, that bias for action helps with a lot of things. Even internally, if we notice that we're struggling with things, for example, staying up to date with the latest news from what comes out, the new services, building internal tools that help you, learn new stuff, just do it. There's nothing that stops you from building things.
So you have around 4 customers, is it, that you support?
So I have 3 right now.
3. And you've got
2.
Okay, because I think it's always between 2 and 4, and you never really have more than that.
Normally not, no.
Cool. Okay, cool. So we've done a lot of talking here on our side. So if you want to come off mute and ask any questions, if you don't want to ask, you can just send it through the chat, and I'll ask a question here. So does anybody want to ask these guys some questions, or me in recruitment? Anyone?
We don't bite.
Hello, here's Nazmi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have only one question to the guys. How you can say are your customers? They're relaxed, they're under stress, or what is the type of customers that usually you have? I know enterprise customers are usually relaxed. They have some backup if something goes wrong, but smaller customers are difficult sometimes. Is there any ways how you handle these cases, or is that based on the work? How do you do at the customer side?
Who wants to take that one?
Should I take it?
I show for the customers.
So for me, in my 3 customers, all 3 of them, they had both of them, where there were times that they were very relaxed. Everything was, at a normal pace. But of course, there are times that one of my customers in retail, there are special events coming, Black Friday, time around Christmas, where things get a little bit heated because, if anything has to be implemented, everything has to be resilient. They want to guess how much traffic that's going to come in, so they want to make sure that their platform is ready. And for that, you have a couple of weeks before that to prepare. And we have something in the TAM side, which is called IEM, Infrastructure Event Management, which helps the customer to plan for these things. It involves stress, yes, but does it affect our work? Not really, because we have the tools to handle these things. A customer, of course, will be stressed about many things. If something goes wrong, of course, they lose money. But we are here for them to help them through that phase. If something goes wrong, we have support engineers ourselves. We are experts of the stacks the customer is running, so we will know how to help them.
So my customers, they had quite a lot of questions about the recent Intel topics with Meltdown and Spectre. So well, like in quite close context. It's
Common knowledge.
yeah, it's common knowledge. So and under NDA, you can give some insights. So you can show them what is happening, what we are doing, what they will have to do. Like we have a shared responsibility model. You will also get quite some tough questions for upcoming things like legal changes, GDPR, which is a data law change that is coming around May, I think. End of May. So enterprise customers can be challenging here. So they may give you tough questions, and then you have to reach back and find the right one to answer it. But for me, it was always on a very nice way. So
they were never too mean.
we don't try to sell anything. We don't sell. So
they buy what they want.
It's like we're an extension of their team, right? So anything that would go bad, or any information that they would need, we can give it to them. That's one of our leadership principles says, customer obsession. We work from the customer and work backwards. So we also want to get their feedback and get their concerns so that we can work.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Hi, this is Rocky speaking from the Netherlands. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. I wanted to ask you, did you have a software development background? And if not, how did you cope with the sheer amount of information and data and focus on that? So I'm from a data center infrastructure, virtualization, and storage background. I'm very much interested in changing and shaping the future. But I'm very interested in how you guys coped with that.
Okay, I will start with a very short answer. So I don't have a software development background. I mean, I can handle C# a bit, but I was for many years working with Active Directory, Exchange, and related services.
Yeah, for me, I was doing everything. So I'm a really bad example here. I have a background in infrastructure storage because of a data center engineer. At the same time, I was also developing extensions on a CRM system at that point in time in PHP. So I do have knowledge in that regard. Is that a requirement, though? I don't think so. I mean, software development is definitely something that our customers are working with on a daily basis, especially with DevOps, working with continuous integration, continuous delivery. But it's something that you can learn yourself. I don't think you have to have programming knowledge to help the customer with setting up a CI/CD pipeline. That's something with just learning and working with it that you can get that knowledge in a very quick time. The customer is going to be the expert writing their application, their platform. So as long as they made a good decision in what language to use and it fits their use case, that's not something that we actually have to work with. We don't know what the customer is writing, what their application, we know what the application does, but we don't have access to source code or anything like that. That's completely up to the customer. We help them with what's underneath, what AWS can provide.
All right. Thank you. I understand.
And how many people on the team would have that software development background? Are there lots of times to do in your?
So in our team, I think we're only 2 or 3 from the 10 people that actually have software development knowledge.
Okay.
It's definitely not a requirement.
That's good.
So you're saying things will materialize as we go along?
Definitely. So to be honest, having this knowledge, it helps me building internal tools and building something that helps to make my job easier. But we have technical communities for that, of TAMs that are developers that build internal tools. But there are many other things that a TAM can do. And to work with your customer, I definitely do not think you need to have this kind of deep knowledge about programming or any programming language.
Well, from me,
experience,
customer expects that we are able to understand the general things like multi-tier architecture, load balancing, and these things.
Yeah.
Queue decoupling. So on that level, I helped in implementing GitHub Enterprise on our architecture and these things, but this was about the infrastructure. It was not about actually their code. So I didn't miss this yet.
Great.
Thanks.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Okay, ladies first.
Shall I?
Okay, Bianca first. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. First of all, let me say that you have been doing a very good job in answering any questions someone might have, because I had a whole list, but you were already talking about them the first half hour. So kudos for that. What I wasn't able to hear exactly was how long it took before you got your first customer assigned. Was it 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 weeks to 6 months?
No, for me it was like 2 to 3 months, 2 months. I would say in average it's more like 4 to 6 months. You agree?
So now I'm a bad example in that because I asked for a customer. So for me it was after 1.5 months I got my first customer. But like I said, first you become a secondary technical account manager, which means you are being helped by a more senior technical account manager or a person who has been with the company a lot longer. That can teach you all of these tools and teach you how to help with the customer. They will teach you those quarterly processes that we have, the reviews that we do, how to get all the information, how to get these tools. And even after that, you're not alone. Like we're here in a team. We have small groups, like we are split up in smaller groups, which we call clusters, where we actually work together in a more narrow kind of way between technical account managers, where if you have any questions about an account or how to get some information, or a customer has a problem with a service, who should you reach out to? That's definitely something that you help, that we help each other with as colleagues.
Maybe to clarify that, I think you are expected to start with the first customers like about 6 months. So that's the expectation. Talking to my manager. There's also a development plan that's built on this timeline. So you have a plan for the first month. We are not. No, we didn't fit this plan.
So I was a technical account manager before, and that made the process a bit quicker for me to pick all of this up. And I was working in very similar technology stacks, although not with AWS, with on-premise and other clouds. So it's personal preference. Like Arne said, the expectation is between 4 to 6 months. But if you feel confident to do it earlier, there's definitely nobody going to stop you there.
Okay. And one other question I was wondering, can you say something about how many cases you are able to handle completely by yourself, and how many cases there are where you were acting more like the liaison for the customer and just passing along their troubles or whatever issues they might have, and where you were not able to solve it yourself?
Well, in general, I don't work primarily on cases. So for me, it's more like I'm checking the cases my customers open. And if I have the feeling that they are not working well, don't go in the right direction, I will pick it up. But I will leave the solution to my colleagues from support. There are a few examples where I actually raised the case for my customer, and I'm actively working on it. But it's not your typical day-to-day business support cases.
No. So definitely for cases itself, we don't jump on them unless it's a high priority ticket that customer is having production pain, so they actually they're losing money. Besides that, what we do, or what I at least do, is if I see a case come in and I have that, then I will write the answer. We have internal notes that we can write. And in those internal notes, what it allows is to show or to explain the support engineer who will pick up the ticket that this is the context of the problem. So there's definitely a way to help in that process. There are cases where I'm on site with a customer and they come to me and say like, okay, we have this problem that I sit together with them and I solve it there. But afterwards, we still open a case so that there's documentation there, and I just write in it that this was the way that we solved it. But to be honest, how often that happens is very rare. But yeah, if something then doesn't work or you have to escalate it, there are processes for that. So we reach out to the team leads of support that can help us with a subject matter expert who can actually jump in and look at the problem. So how frequently that happens for me, I would say in a week, at least 2 or 3 times that I have to reach out to someone because it's just something that I didn't think of, or a customer who's asking for a best practice that, every customer uses the platform in their own way, and sometimes it's just like, I didn't even think about it like that way. So yeah, definitely plenty of ways to get help.
But you definitely spend more time on proactive topics than on reactive ones, looking at how I spend my time. So it's more about preventing cases or following up on cases to prevent them from happening again. So with the customer.
Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So I think, Mahmoud, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask about how you can see the change in the skill set between a solution architect and a technical account manager. You mentioned that you work closely with solution architects and services engineers. So can you describe the delta in the skill sets for each profile?
I didn't get the question.
Yeah, I understood it. What I understood is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like looking at the skill set required for an SA and a TAM, where the difference is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On my side, from recruitment, they're both very similar profile of hire. So in terms of the candidate experience, we would have hired a lot of solutions architects into technical account manager roles, and a lot of TAMs would have gone into solutions architect roles, even within Amazon. So I think it's quite interchangeable in terms of the profile of hire is very similar. I think it's a part of your role that's different. I think it's
a personal preference.
Yeah.
It's what you like to do if you want to build long-term relationships with a customer and being their customer advocate on the Amazon side, or if you want to be a person who jumps in, looks at the customer's architecture and gives best practices, or even goes in and the customer wants to go live with a new product, or they want to migrate, where you go in and you give them guidance on how to do this. So the SA role is a completely different thing, where you are really there building on a project. I wouldn't say immediately project-based, but workload-based, where you help them migrate things, give best practices on current workloads on AWS. And a TAM is more than that. A TAM can do that, but most of the time we prefer that the SA helps us with that, and we can help with any other things that a TAM does, which are a lot, including customer advocacy, escalation paths, anything that would entail.
So you're there for kind of a long-term journey, and maybe a solutions architect might come in and out depending on a specific project or an initiative they want.
So they're also there on the long term. So like Arne said before, they are assigned to the accounts. Although sometimes it depends on what kind of account it is. That solutions architect might have between 10 to 300 accounts.
Wow.
So you cannot always get their time. TAMs do have a very similar technical profile. That's definitely the case. But we sometimes don't have the in-depth knowledge of a specific service, where we must pull in an SA to get help on that service. And also they are constantly working with customers on building best practices. So it's sometimes also good to get another point of eyes, or to get into the conversation that can give best practices from other customers in the same segment, for example.
Because they have a load of customers, you'd only have 3 or whatever. Okay. Cool. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. To the most extent, yes. To answer the question, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? You're welcome. We've time for maybe one more question, and then we've only 5 minutes left. So, anyone else want to ask something? Weird and wonderful.
Hello, it's Remco here. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Can you, from your personal perspective, what's the best part of the job and what's the worst part of the job?
Good question.
Well, the best part I think is easy to answer. So I really like it to be in this kind of a mesh position where you have to jump in multiple roles. So you're on the one side, like on the customer team, if that's okay. On the same time, you work closely with the sales account management. You work on a very tech level with the SA, and you also have an insight into cases. That's the thing that I like most. It's hard to say what I don't like most.
Are there so many things?
Maybe
Hard to pick one?
Topic maybe for me is like the customers I have. They are not working on the bleeding edge of the technology, so they are larger, and so they don't use all the cool services we introduced just 1-2 months ago, and I would like to use them. But, so you are in a complete different position.
I'm in a completely different position. Yeah. So the things that I love the most is exactly what he mentioned. Is my customers are working with bleeding edge technology. They have such a short development cycle that within matters of days, sometimes hours, they go in production with a new feature that we launched. Testing for them is like, I would almost say they test in production, which is, not literal taken, but that's how it feels. The fast cycle that they have to go live. So that's what I love the most, being able to bring that fast pace from AWS, from our side, bring that into the customer and make them successful with those services. The thing that I would say would be I wouldn't say that there's anything I dislike immediately about the role, but let's say a big challenge that would be is staying up to date with those changes. We have times we get our accounts assigned, and we get our accounts assigned based on that we get some time free, that we are able to learn those new services. And in those services, then you have to pick which services to learn. So that for me is a challenge, because at some point you are an expert on the technologies that your customer is using, but then they decide to come one day and say, okay, we would like to use SageMaker, please give us all the information we need. And you go, oh, okay, now I have to learn that. So you have sometimes in a matter of hours or sometimes days, you have to learn that service. Of course, we have people that we can pull in and things like that. Like we can set up workshops. We have SMEs that we can pull over that come on site that teach the customer to work with this. We have immersion days. We have many things that we can offer the customer, but still it puts stress on you that at least it puts stress on me because I feel I have to know what this service does to help my customer in the best way possible.
Maybe adding one thing that on the light path is also like on the customer, you talk to many different levels. So you will talk to C-level, but you will also talk to actually on the tech level, to the guys developing the software and maintaining it. So it's a very broad span of people you will talk to, which is quite amazing. So there's not many roles where you have this. Usually you only talk to one certain level.
It's a skill you need to have as well, though.
Yeah, well, you need to be able to, from a communication side, to communicate with those, which is very different. One will actually want to know about costs. They want to know about contracts, if there are any lock-in, those quite tough questions, while the other ones, they're curious about the new toys and they want to play around.
Okay.
Thank you.
Answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks a million, everyone, for attending. I know it was really short notice. I only decided to do this a week ago when I realised I was coming to Munich, and I roped in the two guys here. So I want to thank you all for attending, and thanks to Lars and Arne for answering all your questions too. But if you have any questions after the event, feel free to email me. I think you all have my email now, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.